Let me introduce you to the people responsible for it. First off, he is the co-writer, Academy Award nominated 2 years in a row, last year for Sing Sing, and this year for Train Dreams. This is Greg Kwedar. And also nominated for an Oscar, BAFTA, ASC Awards. So good. And the toast, from what I read, of Brazil right now, Adolpho Veloso, cinematographer. And co-writer as well as a director, also was Oscar nominated last year with Greg for Sing Sing, and again this year for the Best Adapted Screenplay. This is Clint Bentley. Well, congratulations, guys. I mean, I guess we're nearing the end of a long journey for you, because this movie premiered at the Sundance Film Festival, it's pretty much exactly a year ago, almost. A little over a year ago. And now it's led all the way up to 4 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, Adapted Screenplay, Cinematography, and Best Song. I mean, amazing.
This moment right here, not only to be in this church of cinema that we're all in, but I think this is our last LA Q&A, and we got to see it on 35, and we're just so grateful y'all are here with us tonight. We're never leaving, so we're land.
The Cinematech audiences are among the most enthusiastic and informed, I think, that when you talk about all the Q&As you've done. I mean, they are real fans of cinema. They're coming out here when they could sit at home and watch it on Netflix, but they can also see it in 35 millimeter, you know, which is so beautiful. Did it look great?
Yeah.
How does that make you feel, Adolfo, you know, to have it projected here on film?
Oh my God, it's surreal. I would have never imagined that when we were shooting that like 2 years ago, when was that?
Yeah.
And then when we premiered at Sundance last year, I feel like everything that is happening is so surreal, and I have no words to describe it. I'm just like so happy, and I keep, I keep crying and laughing and screaming all at the same time.
He's also the first Brazilian to ever be nominated for an Oscar for Best Cinematography.
Wow. I did read a story in Deadline, where I work, about that. You described it. It's like the World Cup. This nomination for this movie. It's like they're going crazy in Brazil all of a sudden over this. So
yeah, the Oscars in Brazil right now, it's actually like football. World Cup, and it's actually amazing. It's like it's surreal, but it's amazing to see people back home celebrating culture and art the same way we used to only celebrate sports. And I feel like it's a big shift. And again, I think it's a late recognition for Brazilian cinema and Brazilian filmmakers, and both in Brazil and out of Brazil, because we had so many amazing filmmakers in the past, so many amazing movies in the past, and then suddenly to have all this big momentum where Brazil finally won its first Oscar last year, I'm still here, and then this year with Secret Agent with 4 nominations, and myself with the 5th nomination. In a way, it's incredible to see all that happening and to be a small part of that. It's amazing.
So great. You know, Clint, talk about what this year, this journey, and all the audiences it's played in front of since Sundance, and the reactions you've gotten, and the fact that I think the film is timelier than ever in many ways. You know, that it's coming out now and what it has to say about life and what we're going through.
Yeah, it was something that struck me and us as we were writing, was just that we're reading this book about this guy who lived in the early part of the 20th century in this very particular part of the world, and yet, even in 2021, I think it was when we started writing, it felt so relevant. Some in I think ways that are helpful of just the human condition in general, and some in ways that are really fucking tragic, and I hope don't feel relevant in some years, and the way we're treating the environment, the way we're treating immigrant communities here in this country. I don't know, in terms of the reaction has been very surreal. It's been wild. I think, as Adolpho said, we never thought when we were making this thing, real smaller independent film shooting up in Washington State, and I don't know, I didn't think that many people would watch it and connect with it. Now it's been amazing. I'm getting notes from people on Instagram in Turkey and India who are just saying how much it means to them, and it's been really, really, really special.
Well, that's the cool thing too about Netflix picking it up out of Sundance, because it goes global. It goes every corner of the world of seeing this very American movie, or a different ideal than what they're hearing about day by day on the news.
It is the first movie I ever do that my aunts in the countryside of Brazil watched it. It's actually amazing.
That's pretty wild. Greg, you wrote this with Clint, and what's really interesting to me is you guys went off to, where did you go? Iowa? You went to actually write, instead of staying, in a room with the laptop here. You went where it happened.
We actually went to Bonners Ferry, Idaho, where the novella was set. And one of the things about our writing relationship, we worked together for over 15 years, and we've always tried to embed in the worlds that we write about. And most of the films that we've made prior to this were all contemporary things. We actually volunteered inside Maximum Security Prison and taught acting, and that was our entry point into the process. How do you do that, with a story that's set in the early 1900s? And so we went to where it was originally set, and also the author, Dennis Johnson, and his wife, Cindy Lee Johnson, lived in Bonners Ferry, Idaho, towards the end of his life, had a cabin on the Way River, which is also in the novella. And so we got a cabin on the Way River, and we got to look out the window and see those waters flow the way that they moved for the characters and for the original author. And then found our way into bars and lager towns. Hung out with multi-generational loggers, and then we're with the Kootenai people who were they had a fish nursery. They were reintroducing sturgeon back into the rivers. That big tall thing you see early in the film. We got to see them as babies. It's a species that's over 200 million years old, and they can hold them in your hands. It's like you're looking into the far distant past, and it's alive in front of you. And then we went back to the bar. And then we went back to the cabin, and we actually finished the first draft of the script there in Bonners Ferry, which was really special until on the way home we read that draft.
It's 29 days you shot this movie in? Is that right? Wow. That's true indie filmmaking.
We would have taken more time if we could have.
Yeah, but 29 days is fast to get the kind of quality that you got on the screen here. What was your biggest challenge then in bringing this to life?
I think there was something that there were a lot of challenges of just you always want more time, especially with something like big fire sequence or some of the action sequences. We always want a bit more time. But that's I think talk to any indie filmmaker and they want a little bit more time and more money. But I think the nice thing that came out of it though was we were able to take this approach that we started on Jockey of shooting only in natural light and really stripping our footprint as a crew down as small as possible in order to give the actors complete freedom in whatever situation they were in. And we really just were moving through the scenes very quickly in a way that if we only had 30 or 40 minutes to shoot a scene, we were able to use that time to just shoot the scene and just really dig into it so that we were moving as much as possible, but then still having moments where we were like, okay, we have 5 minutes before the sun fully sets and we have to break for lunch. Throw the chickens out, and now Jill and Felicity are gonna feed the chickens, and we're just gonna like walk around, or like, let's take the kid over here by this river and just have a moment with Joel and the 2-year-old. And all those little moments that like were just things we grabbed along the way, little shots that Adolpho grabbed along the way, really ended up being this beautiful texture that was able to kind of fill out the film outside of the scenes that we had written.
Yeah, Adolpho, can you talk? You've worked with Adolpho before.
We made Jockey together.
Right. So can you talk about the challenges for you of shooting in natural light? Because when I walked in here tonight, there's a poster for Barry Lyndon, Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon, which they happen to be showing. And I'm thinking, look, Barry Lyndon's a movie that, he was determined to shoot it with real candlelight, essentially, but not the usual methods for shooting movies. And this is similar.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it is similar. We obviously had the help of technology in a way, and we didn't have to like borrow a lens from NASA or anything like that. But I feel like it was so important to shoot it that way for what Clint wanted and the way we wanted to give freedom to the actors and to also like, for me it's always hard to see myself in the actor's position and to be in front of the camera. That's really scary to me, so I feel like whatever I can do in a way to help them feel more comfortable and to feel more, I know they are professionals and they're used to like a bunch of lights around them, but I feel like trying to pretend that you are living in 1920 in a cabin in the middle of nowhere, it can probably help if you don't have 100 LED lights around you and you actually have candles there in a way. And so I feel like it's not only just like a better result because it's a naturalistic look and it's real fire, the flickering is real, the color temperature is real. It also makes the whole environment for the actors and for us as a crew more inspiring because you've seen the real deal in a way. So it is easier to frame, it's easier to know what to do, to make your choices. So it is a lot of prep that goes into it, and you need all departments to be on board because not only you need enough candles and double wicks and triple wicks and gas lamps and campfires that actually work, but also you need to schedule around lighting. And there's so many reasons to and so many aspects to take in account when you're scheduling a movie. And to add natural light on top of that, it is tricky and it takes a lot of effort from producers and ADs and everybody involved to pull that out. So it's a big kudos to everybody in the movie to accomplish that.
And it's clearly been recognized by the people that know, your fellow cinematographers, not just in the Academy branch, but at the ASC, the Society of Cinematographers there, Britain, everywhere,
I can't believe it still. Sometimes I wake up, I check on my phone to take pictures. It's still there, nomination's still there, but yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing because, some of those people, fellow nominees, some of my name is around Darius Conji, which is a hero. So it's just like, everything is, again, so surreal.
Wow. This takes place in so much of it in nature and things. Can you talk about the opening, which is kind of a striking scene with the tree?
Yeah, it was not the opening that we scripted. It was a funny thing the edit that I found in the edit when we were cutting it together was the opening that we had scripted was good, but it was just kind of like, I don't know, it always felt like there was something else there. And that bit of voiceover that opens the film was actually pushed much farther back, but it also wasn't fitting there. And in playing with the edit with Parker Laramie, a great editor on this film, we just it was very late in the game, I think like 2 or 3 weeks before we kind of wrapped and locked picture, that we moved some things around and found this opening that kind of pulled you into this world in a very soft way. And that tree shot was one that we had, was in the script in a way to try and like pull us into this world, also to get around the fact that we didn't have any money to like do a bunch of logging scenes.
Yeah.
And so when you're in that place, we're always trying to find ways to take something that seems like a limitation and find a way to actually make the film bigger through it. And we also wanted to be responsible to the environment and not do the thing we were that we were criticizing. So we went into a logging area where they were cutting down trees, and we were just like, can we strap a camera to a tree and while you're gonna cut it down? And it just, I don't know, it just all kind of like clicked into place very, very late, but in a way that like is pulling you into this world in kind of storybook fashion.
There was something about also, like, I think we talked a lot about how we wanted nature to feel like a character in the movie and have its own voice in a way. So a lot of those choices were, okay, how do we give voice to nature here? How we it's like literally a POV on that shot, for example. So we didn't want nature to just feel like it's a backdrop and not shoot it like we would shoot like a postcard or anything like that. We wanted it to shoot it like you're shooting any other character in the movie, to give nature the same voice you're giving Robert or Gladys.
Another character in the movie is the voiceover narration, Will Patton. And I've since seen him in 2 movies, older movies that I was watching. And now all I think about is Train Dreams when I watch this guy act. His voice is so distinctive.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, incredible. Can you talk about, Greg, the decision to so heavily use a narrator here?
It's interesting. I think, oftentimes you think of a narrator as maybe a crutch or like a cheat, when you have the language of cinema. And, yet at the same time, there's so many touchstone films that beautifully use it, and there were some great influences of Clint, like or Jules and Jim. And so, as we were thinking about this, there were a few things that came to mind. Like the first one was we were just trying to create some space to preserve the voice of Dennis Johnson and his prose, which is really extraordinary. If you've never read the novella, it's worth picking up for that. There are sentences that are in that are like small miracles. What he could do with words and the feeling that he gave off when you read it. But then at a certain point, we were also looking for, you have a character in Robert Grenier who, doesn't have the vocabulary for the big feelings inside him. And so the narrator could sort of come alongside and give us an access point into it. And then also the narrator could be there for these really strange tangents into the world that particularly kind of felt in the flavor and voice of Clint too as a filmmaker. And at a certain point, it all like blended together, and there's probably half of the narration is from the novella and half was something original that Clint so beautifully wrote, and he was just deeply conjuring and channeling that energy, which was kind of a marvel. I don't honestly know what is Dennis and what is Clint anymore. It's all a big, jumbled, beautiful mess.
Wow. Is it a particular challenge in doing a novella, trying to turn it into a theatrical feature? It is a small, I have the book.
Yeah, it's 116 pages.
Yeah.
And, something that's kind of amazing about like the fact that it can capture this complete life and all the characters that surround it. And, one of the things I was really taken by when we first engaged with it was that it was described as an epic in miniature. And there's something about that I think, first was like, well, what does that mean? And then secondly, as you interrogate and like sit with that, that yes, this is a movie that's both very big and grand in the world and big in the emotions, but small in its intimacy. And the trick of it all and the revelation of all is that the small things can actually be the biggest things.
Right.
And that was something that I think we really ran with and learned along the way.
What's great about it too, and the wonderful cast here, is they sort of drift in and out of his life. Joel Edgerton obviously is the lead, but Kerry Condon, William H. Macy, these other characters that just sort of pop in, and then then they're not, which is unusual, I think.
Yeah, and really, it's one of those things that like kind of, we had talked about it early on, like wanting to mimic life, where you kind of look back and you remember somebody that you met at a wedding,
Right.
and had like the greatest weekend with this person, and really like, you're gonna be best friends after this, and then maybe you text once a year or something, when like you think of a song or something. But that person still had a really meaningful impact on your life, or somebody you were really close with for a couple years in college, and then kind of never talked to again. But that person still holds some place in your life and inside of you. And then it's just dream come true. You always hope that like you can get Bill Macy for a week or Carrie Condon for a couple days. You
Right.
don't think you're gonna be able to, but
I know.
try.
Having talked to Bill Macy about this movie, he hoped you'd have him a little bit longer.
I know, he's giving me a hard time.
But he's so memorable in what he does on screen. Sometimes you can make such an impression in such a short time if you're a great actor and have great material like this, to play
He's
with.
an iconic character. He's does such an amazing job, to the point that like that song that he sings in the tin and then that plays in the end of the credits is a song that he wrote for the film. What we wrote for that was just that Arn sings a little tune, and then people tell him to shut the fuck up. And they're trying to sleep. And he's like, hey, I wrote this little song, what do you think? And it was beautiful. And one of our favorite, I think like, for all of us as a crew, like one of our favorite nights was Bill's last night there. And we were shooting that scene in the tent, we finished it, and we didn't get the whole song, but he had written the whole song with a little harmonica piece, and I was just like, let's like just put the cameras away and just get a clean recording of you singing, so that we can use this in the credits hopefully, and so we all just kind of sat there as a crew, and we're out under the stars out in the woods in Washington with these tents and a fire going. And we're listening to Bill Macy sing to us. It was just such a special moment down the
It's so great, and then you have a tree just taken out.
How is this gonna go?
I don't know. But, and then you also, when I saw this movie the first time, it was at Sundance, it didn't have, I'm not talking about his song, it didn't have its Oscar-nominated song by Bryce Dessner. Yeah, and Nick Cave, and which it does now, and it got an Oscar nomination. That was added after it sold to Netflix. Greg, is that how that happened? You needed a song?
Yeah, well, I think Clint's maybe more appropriate to answer the question, but yes, it was always something I think that he had dreamed to do, and that's one of the things of like meeting a Sundance deadline to deliver a film is like there's a few like that bucket list item, whether a few more tweaks to the score, to the cut or to the color or something else, you kind of push off until if it can find a home, and then you're like, is there anything else you want to do in the film? And a couple things.
Yeah, when we were finishing the film, like, it was insane. Cause we got in on a working cut, and then I was up in Calgary where Will Patton was shooting something, recording over the weekend with the VO, like 2 weeks before Sundance. And flying back to New York where Lee Salavan, our sound designer, lives and works, and like cutting everything in, and then just begging for forgiveness from Sundance that we were sending the film so late. But that was something that like we had talked about with Bryce, like it'd be great to have a song, and Bryce has such a crazy, Bryce Desner, our composer, he has such a crazy Rolodex. But it was just like, it felt too rushed, and it's such a particular feeling at the end of it that I just didn't want to rush it. And then yeah, Netflix picked it up, and I'm a tinkerer by nature.
Yes.
Some people's annoyance, and I was like, I want to do a couple things to the cut, and Adolpho felt the same way about the color, and we wanted to like tweak some things, and then yeah, we talked about doing this song, and it was like Nick Cave would be amazing, and it felt like nobody else, but also again one of those things where you never could get Nick Cave, and he Loved the book. We found out Joel had his number and called him, and he was like, "Man, I love the book, but I'm going on tour in a couple weeks, and so I don't have time to like write a song. But I'll license you something." We were like, "Just watch the movie." And he watched it, and he watched it one night. He called Joel the next morning, and he said, "I dreamt about the movie in the night, and I just wrote a bunch of lyrics." And 2 weeks later, we got a song.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Before we go, because there's going to be a little time thing here.
We got all night.
I thought we did. I thought we did. This is the last Q&A in LA. Come on. But I got to talk about the plane and that whole sequence and how you shot it, Adolpho. How you made this feel like you've got a camera somewhere flying alongside and everything else, and just a beautiful sequence. That whole sequence.
Yeah, that was stressful to figure out how to do. I feel like half of my gray hair comes from but it was hard because like the movie is so naturalistic, like everything is so like handcrafted in a way. When we were in like real locations and like all the sets were built on location, so everything felt so real. But because of insurance reasons, we couldn't put Joel on the plane. And we had to figure out a way to do that was not like just going to a green screen suddenly and having like the most important scene in the movie be a green screen shot where everything feels fake in a way. So we're really struggling to figure out how to do it. And one day during prep, I was on Instagram and I see this BTS from Dunkirk. And I bring that back to Clint and production and I'm like, yeah, amazing, but I feel like they had more money than yeah, but I mean, I'm sure we can do the Brazilian version. And Alex, the production designer, basically with the SFX department, they did an amazing job and they just built the cockpit of the plane and some parts of the plane that were placed with like force perspective. And that whole thing was just like put on top of like a kind of a gimbal, a thing that would like turn in all possible axes, up and down to the sides and rotate. And we rigged the cameras to that rig as we would on a real plane. We didn't want any like impossible shots, so like it felt like it was actually rigged to a plane. And because that thing was elevated and it would turn in all possible axes, not only the lighting direction was real, because that's basically the real sun spinning around them, and the background was also real. Like they had to paint out like a couple of trees, whatever, but because that thing was elevated and pointing up, what you see is actually the sky and clouds. So there was little enhancements to be done after in VFX, but the whole thing felt real already. The lighting interaction was real, and even for the actors, they could feel what like Clint would be like, nose down, and then like 20 people would like turn the thing down, and then Joe would feel that the plane was going down, so they could actually react to what was supposed to be happening. And then all the other shots, obviously, we shot with the plane flying just with the pilot and from the ground, and with some camera feed to the actual plane.
It's beautifully, and props to the editor too, here, and the editing that made this look so seamless. Yeah.
Yeah, that was another one that it was originally intended not as the ending. It was just it was a smaller sequence leading up to the ending, and then even in seeing a very nascent version of it, we were like, oh, that's the way the film wants to end. That's it. And then so it was like with Parker again, did an amazing job. I think his editing is so elegant across the entire film. We did like 35 or 40 versions of that ending, trying to get it right without, it's a tightrope thing where like you don't want it to feel, you don't want to say too much, you don't want to say too little. Like you need to land in a spot emotionally, and it was really a process of just figuring out the iterations, like what is the film actually about. And I don't think I knew until like editing that sequence and getting through it. It's like, oh, okay, this thing close to it.
You didn't know the beginning, you didn't know the ending. But
I know the middle.
you should be knowing. This is filmmaking, folks. What a lesson in how to do it, because it sure turned out good. Congratulations and thanks for coming out.